Hello everybody and welcome back. This is Matteo from Homesteading Italian. Today we are going to embark on a wonderful journey of dry curing this pork tenderloin. If you watched a previous session, I had gone down to South Jersey to the Pinelands and met my good friend Mike, who had raises a number of pigs using acorns and other food sources. And we brought back a pig, and we, with Andy's help, broke it down into the primal cuts, some retail cuts, but most specifically, we were going to, and we are embarking on, turning one side of that entire pig into Italian charcuterie products. So today, we are taking the pork tenderloin, which is found on the inside of the pig, along the rib cage and spine. It's without a doubt the most tender part of the pig. But in this particular animal, which only dressed out at 100 pounds, and what that means is once you've dispatched the animal, taken out its entrails, you weigh it, and that's called the hanging weight. And that hanging weight on this particular pig was 100 pounds, which is small. And when you have a small pig, you have small meat parts, and this tenderloin is small. But it's still fun to practice and to utilize the entire animal. So we're going to make out of this pork tenderloin a product called Calabrian spice cured tenderloin. I was looking for a better word, but it's still tenderloin. Now, this spice is deep red in color, which we'll be using later on in the curing process. And it imparts just a wonderful smoky aroma to the meat. But prior to getting there, we're going to do an initial spice blend and then work our way up to that. All right. I mentioned this before, but I am one that understands there are people that are better than I am at doing certain things. So I have no problem with going to these people and improving what I do. And one such person is on the internet in YouTube under the title of Two Guys in a Cooler. I think his name's Eric. He's an amazing talent at producing both dry cured meats and fresh sausages. And if you get a chance, you ought to go see him on the internet. I go to his site often, and this recipe is from his site, so I'm giving him credit. The one thing I have over him, I believe, is we raise the pigs and he doesn't, which gives me a little bit more control over the total quality of the pig. All right, so the first thing we're going to do using Two Guys in a Cooler's recipe is we're going to weigh this. So the first thing I do is I want to weigh it in grams because that's what Eric's recipe uses. So I put in this case, a plate on top of my scale, and it's going to come up with a weight. I don't want that weight. So I zero it off, which means now the scale is saying it doesn't even think anything's on top of it. And I put my pork tenderloin on it, and I get 158 grams. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, that is a small pork tenderloin. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have any value. So 158 grams. I'm going to go to Two Guy and a Cooler's site, and they have a recipe where you literally punch in our case, 158 grams, and it spits out not only the spices, but the measurement. So I've taken the liberty of already doing that. And in this particular recipe, if you watch the segment on making guanciale, a lot of the spices are the same. So you have salt, black pepper, sugar. This case, it's dry rosemary. And you have Instacure #2, which is this pink product that you have to get from a specialty store. In this case, it came from the sausage maker up in New York. I would recommend going there. And the other thing, 2 fresh ingredients. This is this little tiny pea looking thing. That's juniper berries. I had to go to a Whole Foods or a organic store to get these things. And then the last but not least is garlic. And I was happy to see the recipe included garlic because I am a self-appointed king of New Jersey for growing garlic. I grow pretty good garlic, which you'll see in later episodes. In this particular recipe, I use soft neck garlic, which I'll explain what that means, but it's a very pungent, wonderful tasting garlic. So I mix that up, all those ingredients, black pepper, the rosemary, get it all incorporated. And I pre-cut a food saver bag. And you always want to pre-cut these things because there's nothing more demoralizing if you cut a bag that's too small for the meat cut. Plus, you're not necessarily wasting the bag. Maybe you can use it on something else, but it interrupts the process. So I'm going to take my tenderloin, and it's damp. And I want it damp because I want the spices to adhere to it. So I'm going to stick it in my bag, all 158 grams of it. Spread it around so it's down at the bottom. And then I'm going to take my spices. Now, the way this recipe works, you need all the spices. You can't leave some in the bowl for the cat to lick later. You need them all. So I'm not going to put my hand in there, and I'm not going to put the meat in there. I'm going to put the spices in the bag so I know 100% of the spices are getting onto the meat that I want them to get onto. So there they go. I'll just clean it out a little bit. And then I'm going to give that a good massage to get all those spices incorporated before I hit it in the food saver and shrink wrap it. Okay, some spices went flying. All right, I'm satisfied initially. So I'm going to take it over to the food. I don't know why, but sometimes I don't line that thing up correctly, and it doesn't seal, but it did now. All right, even though I weighed this prior, I'm going to throw it on the scale again just to get the spices and the meat and the bag an accurate weigh. So it's 178 right now. So I'm going to write on the bag with my Sharpie 178 grams, and I'm going to put the date that it went in. So it's 12/12/24. And this is going to sit in my refrigerator for 1 week. And every day I'm going to turn it, let it know that I'm keeping an eye on it by giving it a good massage, flip it, let it hang out for 24 hours, come back, and keep doing that for 1 week. And then we'll be back to show you the next stages in the development of this wonderful cut of meat. All right, it's been a little over a week, and the pork tenderloin that we put the salt mixture and the spices on, and then we vacuum sealed it in this bag. It's ready for its next stage, which encompasses me cutting open this bag, washing off the spices, putting it in to this product that's manufactured by Butcher Supply out of New York State. It feels like cellophane, but what it does is it controls the speed that this particular piece of meat dries out. You don't want it to dry out too fast, because then the outside dries out and the inside's still raw, and that's not a good result. So we want to control the speed that it dries out at. Once I get this done, I'm going to put it in some netting. This is a PVC pipe where I've strung netting over it, and then similar to you putting your foot into a sock, we put the meat through the PVC pipe. It pushes out the other side, and the net's all around it. So I'll go do that, and I'll be back to show you how it looks. All right, the tenderloin has been wrapped and netted. You'll see I attached a label on it. On that label, I put the date, the green weight, which is the weight it's at this current moment, and it needs to lose 30% of that weight. So I'll check on it periodically, and we'll be back with hopefully a wonderful finished product. So stay tuned. Well, the wait's over, and I'm more than excited to try this Calabrian tenderloin dry cured portion of our project. When I went back and looked at the previous segments of this particular series, I realized that I was so excited I forgot to introduce the actual star of the show, the Calabrian hot powder. So this is what it looks like, and I applied that after I had taken the tenderloin out of the vacuum sealed bag, gave the meat a rinse off in cold water, and then I applied this. So anyway, the date that I put this in was December 31st, and now it's February 2nd. So a little over a month, and we've hit our magic 30% weight loss. So now we get to experience what that amount of time is going to provide us. So you remember I put this in the netting, and then I wrapped it in that protective, I don't want to call it cloth, material. There's a good word. Now when you pull this material off, I've mentioned this before, but if it doesn't come off in its entirety, just run a little bit of warm water over it, and it comes off lickety-split. But this is coming off enough for my liking. But now, it is, I'm not going to say disappointing, but I would have liked to have had a larger cut of tenderloin, but as I had said, this was a small pig. So the smell has a very distinct sweet aroma to it. It's got a very firm texture. It's very misleading when it's sitting in the refrigerator to think that you can go up and touch it and tell. Maybe if you're 80 years old and you've been doing this for 70 years, that might work out for you. But I'm not to that point in my age, so I'm going to rely on the scale and the 30%. All right. So I'm going to cut this in half, and it's a very, very deep mahogany color. It's almost completely uniform in its color, meaning there's no dry areas. But the real test is in the flavor. There's a tiny little piece. That's outstanding. The heat comes on after it's been in your mouth for maybe 4 seconds. Great chewing texture. Very different than the other dried cured meats I've done, capicola and other things such as that. This is a very easy recipe and technique to do. I would strongly recommend, if you've never done anything, that you start out with the tenderloin. They're readily available in supermarkets. The spices are nothing crazy. You probably will have to order the Calabrian hot pepper spice online, but besides that, it's a good one. So I really hope this was beneficial for you. I hope that you'll give it a go. And as always, if you like what we're doing, please hit the like button and continue to follow us on Homesteading Italian. Matteo, have a great day. Bye-bye.